You want me to put that on my todger?
She will reveal Harry's shortcomings. As I've made abundantly clear to you, by understanding narcissism, it tells you so much of what is going on in the relationship between a narcissist, Harry's wife, and her intimate partner primary source victim, the Prince of Pink Pancakes, Harry. That dynamic is one of seduction, then sustained devaluation, which may lead to disengagement, may lead to escape, or may result in neither of those two things happening, and there is the roller coaster ride until one of the parties dies. I've explained also that the most likely outcome is that she will disengage from him. That disengagement looms ever closer. He is in the sustained devaluation, which means that a lot of the time she's not talking to him, is away from him, rounding on him, manipulating him, of course. And there'll be instances where everything's all right again, there's a respite period, but he is experiencing this roller coaster, the up, the down, the up, the down. Sometimes he will remove himself from her, sometimes she will send him away, or she will remove herself from him, leaving him wondering what's going on. Throughout this period of time, he will be subjected to both cold and heated fury. Cold fury is what Harry's wife will use a lot of the time, particularly where others are around, but there will be instances where she will also turn to heated fury, shouting at him, throwing things, damaging property, maybe even physically attacking him. She doesn't do all of this because she just enjoys giving him a hard time, although she relishes the fuel that comes from him, though she doesn't recognize that's what it is. She does it because her narcissism tells her he is the problem. Lesser and mid-range narcissists truly believe that the other party is the problem, that the other party makes life difficult for them, that they are the victim, and this is especially so with mid-range narcissists. They don't see that their behavior caused the problem. They're blinded to it. The narcissism just doesn't let them see. Accordingly, it's like them starting a film halfway through. They genuinely believe that the other party is the one that has caused the problems, and therefore all they are doing is reacting to the way that they have been treated, except it's actually the other way around. This means that all the things that Harry does when he's in the sustained devaluation are deemed to be inappropriate, hostile, treacherous, traitorous, and abusive. He'll be a poor father. He'll be viewed as not helping around the house. For instance, it'll be said that he spends too much time smoking ganja and playing on his PlayStation, that he has caused the reduction in their popularity as a consequence of his ill-thought-out disclosures from Spare, which we all know she encouraged. And then, when it does go wrong, she turns around and blames him. It wasn't a calculated move on her part where she thought, I know, what I'll do is I'll encourage him to put all of this out there, the public will turn against him, and then that'll give me the grounds for getting away from him. She encouraged him to do it because she thought that it would cause more copies to be sold and they would therefore make more money and that it would give them more prominence. She allowed him to do it on his own because it enabled her to allow that control over him whilst hanging him out to dry, as I've explained in Parts Passim back in January. Thereafter, when there is the blowback from all of this, and people are saying the treatment of the royal family was outrageous and that it's diminished their popularity, particularly in the United States, she can then turn and say to Harry, it was your fault because of what you wrote in Spare, rather than realising that that was part of the fault, but also it was largely the way that she had behaved. All of his actions will be viewed as problematic, abusive, and shortcomings, and she will use them against him. Indeed, the Daily Record, with an article by Jessica Gibb, tells us Harry's wife to release her own book, which will reveal Prince Harry's shortcomings. Harry's wife is reportedly set to reveal all about her husband Prince Harry's shortcomings in a new autobiography. The Duchess of Sussex is believed to be currently working on her own version of a book similar to the Duke's after it sent waves of controversy across the country. The couple moved to the United States after stepping down as senior working royals in 2020, just in case you'd forgotten about that. They now live in California with their 2 children, Prince Archie and Prince Lilibet, just in case you'd forgotten about that. The open and honest account of the Duchess's life is expected to include surprising and personal revelations from her 5-year marriage. Harry even hinted directly himself, both in his memoir Spare and their Netflix docuseries, that he felt guilty about how Harry's wife had been treated when they lived in the United Kingdom. That shows, of course, his emotional empathy and protectiveness for his wife, and wished he'd done more to help and reassure her. Or rather, she has repeatedly said to him, "You ought to have done more to help me. You ought to have done more to reassure me." And therefore, because he's told that, he believes that what he did was deficient, and therefore it has to be the case that she told him that he'd let her down, and therefore he ends up believing it. It's quite common for victims of narcissists to end up believing the propaganda that's spewed towards them by the narcissist. He said he felt angry and ashamed that things had got so bad that Harry's wife was having suicidal thoughts. "I was devastated. I knew that she was struggling. We were both struggling, but I never thought that it would get to that stage. And the fact that it had got to that stage, I felt angry and ashamed," Harry said in the couple's Netflix docuseries. The Duke said whilst he was aware of Harry's wife's mental struggles, he was so preoccupied with his royal duties that he didn't give her the support she needed at the time. Or probably more likely, she'll have said to him, "You didn't support me because you were being selfish and you focused on your royal duties. You think more of that family than you do of me." And once again, in order to avoid having his pods tasered, Harry thought, "Yes, you're absolutely right." And therefore he repeats what he's been told. He added, "I didn't deal with it particularly well. I dealt with it as institutional, Harry." Now you just know that is not a phrase that Harry would use, that he's been labelled that by her, as opposed to husband Harry. And what took over my feelings was my royal role. I've been trained to worry more about what are people going to think if we don't go to this event, we're going to be late. And looking back on it, I now hate myself for it. And now new reports claim Harry's wife believes it's time to put her side of the story across into the public domain. Harry's wife really wants to get her side of the story across after Harry got the space to tell his story so deeply. They added, "There have been times that Harry's been less than perfect in the marriage, which he acknowledges, but no one is perfect." Now, believe me, the examples they've given there of what he's been told by her, which he has taken on board and regurgitated, is only the tip of the proverbial iceberg in relation to what she'll say about him. It will be far more scathing. She will utilise the book at the appropriate time, probably during divorce or shortly thereafter, once she's bagged the money, to talk about how much of a victim she is to an abusive husband. She will label him an abuser in terms of how he didn't help her, didn't support her, didn't do things around the house, wasn't involved with the children that much, and also will likely talk about his drinking and drug taking as being abusive and that he had a temper on him, which he does. She may even accuse him of physical or sexual violence because, of course, her narcissism will revise history to cause her to believe it, so that she will put forward those views in order to smear Harry at the appropriate time, thus gaining indirect control over him, and for the purposes of asserting control directly over a readership in order to draw fuel from them and, of course, the residual benefit of money. It's more than shortcomings, she'll describe them as, and as the Daily Record relates to, those are just some minor failings that Harry believes that occurred. But understand this, when it comes to a narcissist and their own tale of woe, and it will follow with her because she loves nothing more than banging on about herself, she will ramp it up to 11 by talking about how badly she's been treated by what will ultimately be her ex-husband. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.